Okay, sorry. I have to tell my other colleagues that I'm busy in a meeting. Yeah. All right. Okay. So some round of
Meera, 1 minute.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, as part of our immersion program, we have the pleasure of hosting a lecture on the topic Thinking Philosophy, Reading Philosophy, Writing Philosophy, What We Do When We Do Philosophy. This session will explore the idea of philosophy as an embodied reflection that engages with the everyday world, going beyond just theory and rational reflection. Our speaker, Dr. Meera Bindur, is an Associate Professor of Humanities and Social Sciences at TMA Pi Management Institute, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Bangalore campus. She is an environmental philosopher, educator, and researcher with expertise in environmental humanities, including nature and environment in Indian philosophical and cultural traditions, traditional geography, and eco-pedagogies. I also welcome Dr. Srinivas, HOD of Department of Philosophy, Dr. Vishnu, and all my fellow men and those joining us online.
Yeah. Shall I begin?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes,
so we're going to have a very interesting time. So it's going to be a very unusual session because there'll be, I hope all of you have a pen and a paper and a notebook. Yeah, because we're going to be doing some fun stuff today. So the first thing I want you to do is, so first let me just give a brief introduction to the idea of philosophy itself, right? Philosophia. Philos means love. Sophia means wisdom. Now, what happens in the history of philosophy is wisdom is there, like, they forget that philosophy is grounded in emotion of love, right? So what happens is philosophy becomes a dry subject of logic and, thinking and rationality and what have you. And there's so many words that are added into the word of philosophy. So the original philos, which is affiliation, love, it's actually people keep on denying, perhaps because philosophy was so patriarchally designed by men, okay, old men, white men, men from Western philosophy, Western thought. It seems to be have somewhere when I started to study philosophy, I felt as a woman, I felt displaced, right? And then second, I felt like everyone says first thing we learn is philosophia, and then philos is love, and I'm like, where's the love? I mean, there's a passion, there's a love that is there inherent in the word philosophy itself. And so the love has disappeared. Now all that is left is some kind of shushka, dried. It's like eating dry mango cubes instead of actually biting yourself into a rich, juicy mango, right? So the question, therefore, for us when we start to think about philosophy is to not be bound by what earlier philosophers have done. Okay? And that itself is a philosophical project. Of all the subjects in the world, of all the disciplines in the world, philosophy is the only one which will look back at itself and say, am I philosophy? Right? Whereas other things will actually start to ask, like we'll start off with the definition of engineering is blah, blah, blah. The definition of management is blah, blah, blah. But philosophy will ask, let me see, the definition of me is love of wisdom, but am I really the love of wisdom? So it's going to question itself. So it's not, so the whole point of philosophy is a sort of thinking, reflection, turning back, not assuming things to be written in stone. Right? The philosopher is probably, sometimes philosophers annoy other people because we can't decide. Apparently, we think so much. So whenever we are thinking, we are not supposed to be acting. Right? We're not doing. So people will tell me, "Bahut sochte hai, don't do." I mean, do know why are you thinking so much? Or they'll say, oh, don't overthink, man. I don't go meta on me. I don't know. There are all these jargons which are associated with as if thinking, as soon as you think, you're frozen, you're not moving, you're not acting, right? And moment somebody sees philosophers, they'll be like, oh, she'll be sitting under a tree meditating and not doing anything, not useful to the society, right? So within this kind of thing, people tend to also forget that one of the highest qualifications in your educational system is what? What? Shout out. Keep one mic on and all of you shout out. Which is the highest qualification you can get in educational system?
No.
If you keep one mic on, somebody yell, that's all. And other people can pass. Which one?
Doctor of Philosophy.
Doctor of Philosophy. Or doctorate degree.
Yeah.
What is a doctorate degree called? P?
HD.
What is P?
Philosophy.
Right? So, whether you're an engineer PhD or you're a medical PhD or you're a management PhD or you're whatever PhD, the P is us, philosophers. Right? So it's very, very useful because without us, you won't get your doctorate also. Right? So, in fact, in foreign countries, they don't write Dr. Meera Baindu. They write Meera Baindu .PhD because the PhD is considered to be more heavier than just a medical doctor. Right? So the first myth about philosophy is this thing that it's only about thinking, reflection. It's also something that freezes you, doesn't allow you to act, right? And so that is the presupposition that we have about philosophy, right? Now we found out that philosophy sort of exists, this hidden virus that's present everywhere in society under the PhDs of everyone. Third thing we found out is that PhD, the philosophy has got, inside it, it's got a hidden word, which is the love of wisdom, and love doesn't exist. Okay, let's come back to India, right? Indian philosophy. In Indian philosophy, we call ourselves darshana. What does darshana mean? Where do you use the word darshana in general conversation, in Kannada, in Hindi?
In a temple.
In a temple. God darshan, right? Or Bharat darshan, or Doordarshan.
Yeah.
So, but is it just seeing? So when I see my friend on the road, do I say, मैंने उसका दर्शन किया?
No.
No, right? So what do you use for that? When do you say that? When do you use this? When do you do darshan?
Depends on the person.
No, when you perceive in its entirety, maybe when you.
Yes, so nature darshan.
Sure.
If I go to a hill station, I'll say I had darshan of the Himalayas. Does it capture entirety? Capture. So here's what I want you to do. Okay, workshop. Right.
Okay.
So take 5 minutes. Okay. Write down. Imagine you're explaining darshan to a foreigner. US American student. Is there an exchange student on premises with us?
No.
No. Okay. So good. Otherwise, we would have had that person be left out of the exercise and I would do a different one. But since there's no exchange student, all of you now sit down and write down a 3-line or a 4-line paragraph. You can use as many drafts as you want, explaining what is darshan to an American student. I did that for a long time, so I'm taking revenge on all of you by making you do this. Because half the time in your PhD, wherever you go, you'll be asked to, even if you're going to Europe, okay, MCS people also. First thing they'll ask is, oh, India is a land of spirituality. What's your philosophy? And then you have to say darshan. So everybody has to be ready you have to be Indian ambassadors equipped with the definition of darshan. So go with darshan. Okay, the time now is, on my watch is 2:15. You have till 5 minutes or 10 minutes? 5 minutes or 10 minutes? 10 minutes.
5 minutes?
5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Take around, okay, 7 minutes. Okay. 7 minutes, go. 4-5 lines explaining to an American. Or if you feel threatened by writing, you start writing a letter. Dear Alina, Dear Vandax, Dear Paul, I'll go get for hot water and come by the time you finish.
Okay.
Go for it. everyone. Go for it. Simple. I was simple. Did she ask us to do like 3 lines?
She.
Yeah, she did.
There is 3 lines.
Yeah, I'm not pointing out to her this thing.
Okay.
Chill.
What did I? I'm just stealing everyone's confidence. Without even saying it. Okay. This one was.
What was she like?
Independent, autonomous individuals, work on your own.
Didn't know you were there.
I usually leave, but I'm always present. Yeah, like the word philos in philosophy. Face should not be seen while working. No, sometimes it's like silly to do that.
That is one way. Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah,
Could we use an example to explain?
yeah, whatever you need. I'm telling you, just a foreigner there. So that's all.
Not I'm trying more.
Don't write off an essay and all. Just foreigner will get overwhelmed. So slightly better than Trump and slightly lesser than Obama. Yeah, that's the audience.
Slightly better than Trump and slightly less than Obama.
But for us only. So that is your foreign friend. Okay. Time is ticking away. Another 2 minutes. Remember, you have to explain, don't forget, you have to explain darshan, right? What is darshan? This is the MCES and the Department of Philosophy, MA Philosophy, and Manipal Center for European Studies students. Immersion program.
Philosophy students that are.
There's no European studies.
That is all.
Someone else, but they won't help. Probably can still.
I have somebody attending session in front of me also. So, yeah.
Okay.
Stay person can take the mic and read out.
I'm sorry?
Remember, I'm a foreigner, so I don't know anything.
Okay.
It's okay. And you have been nominated. Yeah, so you have to read.
Okay. So, darshan is when you completely immerse yourself in an experience to the point where you can consciously perceive and grasp that experience in its entirety, not just the physical, but the metaphysical and the fundamental.
Such a good textbook example. Good job. Yeah, very precise and nice. Hold on to it. It's a good example, good definition. Hold on to it. Okay.
I
Then we
stole
break it up with an.
I stole the physical aspect of my definition from her, just to say, yeah. Oh, also, I have a second explanation, which is multi-dimensional observation with intent and conscience. But yeah.
I don't know if Americans will get vocabulary, but okay, good. Try. A multidimensional is something that they are increasingly not getting. Okay.
That is true.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I will.
Yeah.
So, darshan is viewing or paying attention to the every little detail of the object or the person that you're viewing to a point where it's not just the physical aspect that you focus on, but it is also you are also, for example, when you're viewing, unlike when you're viewing a person, where you just look at the person, his appearance, their appearance, the clothing, etc. And when you look at the DP, you take the darshan that you're in a way that you're not looking at the appearance of the DP, but more like the power the DP
Okay,
holds.
you're grasping something that is beyond the mere sensual data.
Yeah.
So grasping something beyond the sense data. So I get offense when you keep on saying it's not just physical, not just physical. So I want to flag 3 or 4 words that you all pointed out. Carl, 1 second. We'll give you a chance. So there's darshan, which is like let's flag experience, and then let's flag the word immersion. Then from your definition, let's flag the word beyond the senses, or that particular phrase what you used. Okay. Anybody else has anything unusual to add to this? And then Carl, okay. Carl?
Carl's not here, man.
No, he's connecting. He's joining on Zoom. Okay. So that's why I'm saying hello to him.
Okay.
Hi, Carl. Welcome.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi.
Hi,
Sorry,
Carl.
I'm a bit late, but I'll be there.
Yeah. Okay. He's also beyond the senses right now. No, but he's completely beyond. I am at least available for visual sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I get your definition. Anybody has anything else to add? Okay. Now I'm going to do something funny. Okay. How many of you are bilingual? Do you know one more language besides English?
Yes. All of us.
Yeah. So write it in the other language.
Oh.
Okay.
Can we just translate that?
Yeah, translate that. It's fine. You translate, you write it. Transcreate, transwrite. Hindi, Kannada, Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, Rajasthani, Gujarati, whatever. Marathi.
Okay.
If you all know Hindi, do Hindi. If you all know Kannada, do Kannada. I don't think there'll be a common language. I think it'll be mixed. But I think Hindi and Kannada are okay. Bangla is also okay, if you know Bangla. Marathi is slightly difficult. But I guess Neeta ma'am is not there. Otherwise, she would have helped in Marathi. But I think Hindi is possible because most of us know Hindi. And Kannada and Tamil definitely possible because they are South. Malayalam a little difficult for me to understand, but yeah, right.
Exactly.
7 minutes, 5 minutes because it's only translation. Now he's going to have a problem. Multi-dimensional. हिंदी में क्या
Yeah,
बोलेंगे?
that's my second definition. I'm ignoring it.
हाँ ठीक है. बहुप्राकृत नहीं. I don't know. Google Translate को पूछेंगे. Dimension का क्या translation? ಬಹು ಆಯುತಗಳು. ಮಲ್ಟಿ-ಡೈಮೆನ್ಷನಲ್. ಬಹು ಆಯುತಗಳು. ಆಯುತ.
Ayutthakal. What? That's
Wait,
Kannada.
ಆಯುತ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇರಿ. ಆಯಾವಗಳು. Not ಆಯುತ. ಅವಯವ, ಆಯಾವ. Those are words which come. Dimensions, no? No, wait. It's not ayava, it's ayamagalu. That's the geometry. Ayama. Vritta ayama, dimension of a circle. I'm trying to remember some third standard Kannada. Correct. I think it is ayamagalu. Srini, correct?
He's not.
He's not here.
Is that enough time or you need more time?
2 more minutes.
Yeah. Somebody who didn't go first, wants to try?
I'll do.
Yeah. Some new person who didn't go first. Yeah. If you're not visible, it's okay. I can do with your Akashvani. Yeah. Voice from the sky. Yeah.
నువ్వు తెలుగు నువ్వు తెలుగు అంతేగా ఇంకే
దర్శనం అనగా ఒక పరిపూర్ణ పదార్థమును లేక తత్వమును లోతుగా పరిశీలించి ప్రశ్నించి దాన్ని గ్రహించుట.
Prashninche. Okay. There's a questioning of it.
Yes.
So darshan requires questioning?
Partially, yes.
Partially, yes. So when you go in front of a god, do you question?
In reality, people may not question, but it is supposed to be to question what the concept of God, or to mull over the
So
concept
shall
of...
we replace the word prashna with the word inquisitiveness?
But in Telugu, I don't know what
Kutuhalate.
Kutuhala is curiosity. Kutuhala is curiosity.
So is it prashna or is it kutuhala?
Prashna is more, it is more close than Kutuhala. Kutuhala is just curiosity.
So the question is prashna and darshana. That's what I'm saying. When you go to a god, do you have prashna or do you have kutuhala? See, this is what is called decoloniality. We've got so used to the idea of philosophy as questioning that we don't question the questioning. Right? So when you say darshana, do you question? Or do you explore?
Explore.
If you go and ask the God why, he will say, this is your karma. Right? We ask the God how? Hege. Heg madli, heg pass. We ask God to do things for us. So when we go and have darshan, we like, how beautiful God is. How wonderful. How have they decorated the God? In that sense, in a very Indian sense, the Indian how, right? It is not a questioning how, it is a... They'll ask that question. When you have a darshan, just put yourself in Udupi Krishna. Oh, yen vaibhava, eshtu chanag decoration ಮಾಡಿದಾರಲ್ಲ ಅದು ನೋಡಿ ಆ ಹೂವ ಹೇಗೆ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, that ಹೇಗೆ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Yeah. So there's an exploratory how, right? So what happens to our mind is we've been listening to philosophy and its definition and the questioning and the rationality and the critique. There's like a critique. Unless you, moment I open my mouth and say, Indian philosophy, I have to say, oh, it was all Brahminical, people were excluded from it, and people were like, there's gender seclusion, and we have not even touched the text before which we already decided. It's like baby is not born. We decided ये president नहीं बन सकता, ये नहीं बन, engineer नहीं बन सकता, cat में fail हो जाएगा, ये, and then everything we've decided for the baby, and then say, okay, now we'll call him. I think the only thing he can do is beg, so we call him Pichai Swami. And that's what has happened to us from our, because for a long time, historically, philosophy has been the endeavor of the West. And when it came down to the East, the word philosophy, when imposed on Sanskrit darshanas, studied by Western philosophers, we had J. Garfield. There were two kinds of people who did this philosophy. One were the Pandits and the other were the professors during colonial times. And both these people did not fully, there's a sense of, philosophy is this great thing, everybody cannot do it, it is unattainable, these fellows have to be wise, they have to be in a forest. If they're not in a forest meditating for 20 years, they should be in a big library full of 25,000 books. They should grasp the wisdom and they should sagaciously nod their head and say, Beta, this is the secret of life. So philosophy has got much more stereotyping than any other subject. Okay. So anytime I go and say I'm a philosopher, they won't believe me. Not with that anyway. Okay? There's a particular stereotype of philosopher that is there. And a large part of our epistemic stereotyping, what I call epistemic stereotyping, is a stereotyping of ideas and concepts in the mind comes from Western knowledge systems. It's not wrong or bad, but it is a certain singular way of doing things. It's like when somebody comes and says, you should not use a pressure cooker. No, I'll tell you a better, much more easier example. So I was in a conference in one of the smaller towns of Karnataka, and there was this very erudite Pandit Brahmin who told us very funnily that in the olden days we used to make butter using the, that churning, right? Manthan. We used to do that. And once you churn the butter, when the butter starts happening, the sound of the splash changes. Those who have gone into a kitchen will remember that. Those who have not, go and check nuts next time. So when you're churning, when the butter is when the curd or the cream is thick, you will get a very different kind of a splash. When the butter solidifies, you get a more watery splash. It'll sound more watery. Okay. Then that is okay. That's a very good thing. It's a very fine auditory observation. A lot of us know that the butter is ready. We know the ghee is ready because of the sound it makes, right? When we make ghee. The pat-pat noise to make ghee fully become, there's a noise meter that we have. We know that the ghee is ready, or smell meter, both we use to judge whether ghee is done or not. Otherwise, it will become too burnt ghee is not possible, right? So these techniques are learned in the kitchen. Now this particular professor or Pandit says, in modern days, women cannot make butter properly because they use mixie, and a mixie you cannot make out the noise. My mother has been making butter from 1976, from the time Sumit mixie came. She's been making butter. And sorry, no, she also, even the mixie noise changes. Okay. The mixer grinder noise also changes when butter is made. It's not only the thing. Just because you're doing it by hand and putting that woman through physical labor and torture doesn't mean you get better butter. Punjab makes butters in washing machine. Right? Now, what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to show is, when there are ways of thinking that are set and grooved, what happens is an archaeological philosophy. You can't go back and change the Harappa script. You have that document and you have to study it again and again and again. Whereas, when you start making butter with a mixie, with a washing machine, I don't know, blend jet we can make, or we can use a shaker. And in the Himalayas, when I went, I was very surprised. They don't use that. They have to sit for long hours in the dark, right? So they have a pot which is sort of with the bottom is round, okay, and they'll keep on shaking like this, front, back. They go on shaking the pot. Splash, splash. There is no violence in the act. It's a very gentle, like a cradle. They'll keep rocking it, and after 4 hours, butter will come.
Wow.
With gentle rocking. Okay, but you're sitting in the night. There is no light. You can't waste electricity, so you just sit in front of the fire and you'll talk all kinds of nonsense and rocking the butter. Okay. Yeah, it's a good time for them to tell all their stories and complain about their daughter-in-law and then scare people about ghosts and everything. It's a very interesting community conversation time. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is that there's not one way of doing or thinking. And what is required today is not a rejection of Western philosophy and saying, no, I won't study Socrates is wrong, or I won't study Marx. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that in the endeavor of thinking and reflection, we need to be more inclusive. And I want you to be very aware as you're studying, not only about coloniality and decoloniality, but also be aware when you're so-called writing these thoughts, like between Prashna and Kutuhala. You need to get smarter about what? Language. Right? Because philosophy is about A large part of philosophy is about languaging. Any thoughts on that? Do you think you can do philosophy without language? Darshana or philosophy?
Darshana, yes, maybe.
So
Not.
if not okay. Darshana you can do without language, but if you do not document your experience, you're getting experience.
Yeah.
But will a child have darshan?
Maybe. It depends on the individual makeup. Maybe some.
Okay, all right. So what is it that will not allow a child to have darshan?
Past karmas.
Okay. Nani, let's say you and your 2-year-old nephew are in front of Krishna. Who is getting darshan? Who is seeing? You all agreed that seeing is different from darshan, right? Who's seeing and who's having darshan? Is the 2-year-old nephew having darshan? Or is he just seeing?
If the 2-year-old nephew is free from his karmic ties, then we both are seeing and having darshan at the same time.
Yeah. From your viewpoint, he's having darshan, but from his viewpoint, does he recognize it as darshan?
Probably not, because he doesn't have the mental frame.
What? He doesn't have the vocabulary.
Yeah, the vocabulary. Yeah.
So even raw emotions, phenomenologically, until you articulate them, you have to say it's anger. And a strange thing. When you articulate your experience, it changes the nature of the experience.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Right? So as long as you're angry and fuming and you're angry, right? And then at one moment when you say, I am angry, the anger level sort of drops one notch. Right? The moment you articulate your experience, it changes the experience of the experience. Strange but true. So it's like, it happens many oftentimes when I'm doing something and say, hey, stupid. And the moment I say stupid, I'm clever. And I say, you're stupid. The moment I say that, I've recognized my stupidity, so I'm cleverer. My stupidity has changed because I recognize I'm stupid. And then I've become clever because I recognize my stupidity. It's strange that languaging, I'm not saying languages, I'm saying languaging, putting into words, Vak Shakti, changes the nature of experience. Think about it. Do you recollect other examples of this when just knowing something, a word for something has changed your experience of it?
Yes. So I can't think of an example.
Yeah, what happened? Like, can you give some concrete examples? Yeah.
Strangers to friends.
The very strangest of friends changed your experience.
No, it's like when I say that you were a stranger to me, my viewpoint of you was different. But the minute you became a friend, my viewpoint of you has changed.
The moment that person was articulated into a language of a relationship, you said, now we are friends, right?
Yeah.
And labeling that person a friend changes the experience of that person. You're familiar, there's a way to talk, everything changes, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're walking in it's very common in stations, right? When you go in a train and then you're talking and then they say, oh, Nimur Baindura, oh, Namuru Baindura, oh, Niva Pakat Mane, oh, Bell Mane, oh, Blue Mane Lidida, oh, Nanim neighbors, right? That happens. And the moment that experience gets languaged into a relationship, so this particular labeling of it, right? It's not a normal languaging. There's a particular way that word friend is not a normal word. The word is carrying one truckload of stuff. It's called meaning.
Yeah.
And that meaning is not one meaning. All of you, when she said friend, you know it is not just a word.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like darshan is not just seen. It doesn't just capture like my hand is going from towards the screen, right? This is just a word which is describing an action. Mira's hand is moving towards the camera on the screen. It's going, okay?
Yeah.
But when I say Zoom meeting,
Yeah.
there's a truck.
Yeah.
Some words are trucks, which are carrying other things. Some words are straight words, which are describing.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So in your own sentence, you look whether it's a truck. How many? Underline some truck words. Words that are trucks. Some are trains, okay? They have like many bogies. And some are just trucks, and some are minivans. Some are tempo autos, but there are these words which carry other things inside them. I don't want to use the regular word, which is very gendered, pregnant, right? I don't want to use that word, pregnant with mini. And that's why I'm using it, truck. It's trucked up. It has a lot of luggage carrying capacity. Any words? Somebody else shout out some words which are trucks.
Ma'am, when you say that a word is a truck, it means that they carry more various meanings of many other words.
Many other words and many other things on them. Like friend is carrying relationship, behaviors, familiarity, promises, how you can, there's lots of stuff stuffed inside that word friend.
Words are loaded.
Yeah, so there are words like that which carry other words. Straight words are words like, let us say, name, your name. Your name just carries your name. But when I say Brahmin, the word immediately carries all. I don't know, Marx to Deepankar Gupta to, Romila Thav. Everybody is there inside that word, right?
Yeah.
It carries all those people. So when people say, when they say like God's name, right? Krishna.
Yeah.
Full Srimad Bhagavata is carrying that word, is carrying Srimad Bhagavata. Inside that word, one word. Very bhari bharkam hai.
Yeah.
Yeah, some words. Give me those words.
Maybe society or caste.
Society or past. Good. Past is a heavy word. Society is very heavy word. Then
Maybe all the philosophical glossaries.
Yeah. The entire vocabulary of philosophy is a truck words. It's full of truck.
yeah, exactly. Even darshan is a truck word. Yeah. Then
Gun. Yeah.
so there is sometimes these words are little funny. Okay, there'll be a word tree. Okay, tree is actually a tree. Okay, that green thing outside is good, but secretly it's a truck word, and that's what philosophers figure out. How is so? All of you can draw a tree, a sketch in your book. Trunks and manji. I don't know if you can see. No, I don't think you can see, right?
It's not clear.
I should do the unblocking of the vision. 1 second. Now it's not blurred. Now you can see.
Yeah.
Can you all draw that? Now, why, when this becomes this is carrying this.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry to be upside down, but you can see mirror image. TREE is carrying this. Okay, is it only carrying this, or is it also carrying Okay, I'm trying a banana tree, but I hope you will get it. Yeah. Sure. Coconut tree, banana tree, all is it's. Can you see it's secretly a truck?
Yeah.
Today we learned a very important lesson in philosophy that words are trucks. So when you use them in everyday life, you have to first figure out what is this word carrying. Otherwise, you will deliver cabbages in a radish shop and onions to a Udupi Mata, which is not okay. Your words are trucks. They carry meanings, ideas, concepts, past, histories, geographies, people's lives, experiences. So here's the nice word that carries the meaning of the word truck. Concept.
Yeah, that's heavy. So, big heavy truck.
A word truck that carries all other word trucks is concept.
Yeah.
Isn't it a tree?
That's a tree.
Yeah, that's a tree.
Even the tree, so the word concept is a truck that is carrying all other trucks,
Yeah.
which have other things carrying them. So it's like master truck, right? Now, in concepts, there are two kinds of concepts. One kind of concept is called a prototype. Okay, what's a prototype? It is one thing that represents all the types of it. So the Manipal student is a prototype. Some abstract thing that is called the Mahe student is a prototype. That abstract Mahe student should not wear Hawaii chappal in the EDU building. The prototype of the Mahe student, who is a good student, will not. So we all have heard good student, right? So there's a prototype. There's a particular set of qualities and everything. That's a prototype. So when we say good student, the truck called the good student or the concept called the good student is a prototype. It is a representation of all good students in Mahe. Take all the qualities together, filter them. It's like filter coffee. You just have that pure good student prototype. It's a prototype. Okay. Okay, there's another form of a concept, and that is the meaning bearing one. Okay, motherhood is a concept. Nation is a concept. Philosophy is a concept. So when I say good student, it is different from philosophy. You can see there are two types of trucks. Right? One is a straightaway truck, which is just carrying some meanings. The other is it's a representative of all its. There's a set of all, there's a class of all things, and this particular thing is a prototype. Right? And there's a set of all things which is being carried by a truck. It's not representative, but it means these things. There's no prototype nation, but there's a prototype of a model, right? When you say bicycle, you have a bicycle, it has two wheels, this one. When you say the Nyayikas were great in prototypical concepts, right? The Nyaya people, they'll say cow. It should have dewlap, two horns and ears, and they have their own definition, right? So prototypical concepts and normal concepts. Now, what does darshana and philosophy do? In darshana also, now when they're talking about philosophy and darshana, they're different, okay? But then they're talking about the truck words, they are same. In philosophy, we deal with what are called tattvas. In darshana, we deal with tattvas. Tattvas are things that exist. When they say tattva, they're not talking about things as things. They're talking about truck words, which are labeled for things. Right? And in English, we call them conceptualizations. We don't want to call them concepts, which is a very linguistically restricted word. We'll call them conceptualizations because we want to give multiplicity. So philosophy deals with conceptualizations, ways of thinking about what kind of a truck this is, what is it carrying, Are all the things in the truck the same? They're different. Is it a dumper truck? How big is the truck? How many things are there? When did it start its journey? What was it carrying first and now what it is carrying? Right? So in a very simple way to conclude, from philosophy is loving to look at truck words. And because truck words, it's very, sometimes looking at trucks is interesting. Sometimes these trucks are very boring. So when it's boring, people say we are useless. But when it's interesting, it's always interesting. Like the way we explored the ideas of words itself is very interesting. And what you've been doing right now is philosophy. We reflect on tattvas, we reflect on concept. So as opposed to a little bit of a lecture now, when we look at conceptualizations, yeah, go ahead.
Are concepts in tattvas the same? Could you equate?
Concepts in Indian philosophy we call them tattvas.
Okay.
The truck called the concept has got a prototype concept and an abstract concept. Okay, there are two types of trucks: one dumper truck and one normal truck. But in philosophy, in tattvas, we prefer to load on our trucks. The trucks are called tattvas and they hold what exists, what's around us. Okay, we have a little more general, experiential, a little more experiential. They're also abstractions, but they're a little more experiential. But one should say that they're phenomenological. If you want to say you experience it with your senses and your body, right?
Yeah.
So we will not have a word like nation. You will mostly, I think in Indian philosophy, we can point to most of the things. Metaphysically also, you can point to God also. Okay, we can point to most of our concepts.
Right.
There are very few concepts that you cannot point to or experience.
Okay.
And if we do have those concepts, then they become like more into Buddhist. Like for instance, shunyata, we can't point to shunyata, but we can logically derive, right?
Right. Yeah.
So there are concepts which are in mathematical concepts, and there are formal operations in Indian philosophy also. They are the abstract concept. But for most extent, we don't have words. For example, our desha is a very geographically landed place. We say Bharat Desh. Desh is not nation. So in my work on decoloniality, I'm just sharing what I'm thinking right now as I'm doing this. The work on decoloniality suggests that these kind of things are, it's very strange, right? If I just think of desha and I think of nation, we use them as if they're translations of each other, right? The Indian nation versus Bharat Desh. But Desh is not, Kuru Panchala Desha and Bharat Desha, they all have the same kind of image. Desh is not nation.
Yeah, it's a locality.
Yeah, it's local. It's very grounded in land, Uttar Pradesh, Pradesh is another word. Pradesh also is different. Pradesha. And then we look at sthala, sthana. Everything is pointable. So I've been starting to look at Indian philosophy in a very with new kind of reflecting on the nature of Indian philosophy itself and doing intercultural philosophy. Because for me, then I also reflect on what was Socrates doing, what was this person doing, what did they think of philosophy, what were the Greek people doing? Early Greeks, like like Thales and Anaximander and all were still in darshana. They were not doing philosophy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
With Socrates, you start to have the entry of some sort of abstractions, right? And so then they started loading their trucks in a different way. And whereas we continue to load our trucks in the same way as we were doing many years ago. And with the coming of enlightenment and modernity in Western philosophy, you start to load your trucks in a completely different way. You start to call your trucks something else. What we call them? You start to call them. Yeah, I'm talking a lot about trucks because there's a small truck on my table. Yeah, it was a gift from a young boy. That's why the truck. But I feel it's a good thing because meaning-bearing truck makes good sense. We should integrate technology into philosophy, and I thought this is the way to integrate technology into philosophy. Okay, so now coming back to the idea. So the idea bearers, the concept bearers. So in contrast with other disciplines, coming back to the regular disciplinary framework, there are things that are at the background of which are the roads on which these trucks are going.
Right.
Are they going from Delhi to Pune or Bangalore to Tumkur? Where are they going? Are they going on Dodbalapur Road? Are they going from Manipal to Shimoga? So the background against which these concepts are showing up is the context. And the disciplines that capture the context of these meaning-bearing words are the social sciences, right? They are the social sciences and literature, right? Literature and social sciences are contextual disciplines. So how do you figure out whether you're doing philosophy or doing social science or doing literature? At one point of time, there was a lot of problem in the West where a lot of what happened in the social studies and literature were all happening together as a one diffuse session, right? They're happening as a diffuse session of reflection. People would think about these things and they'll continue to have social sciences and literature together, right? And what happened was the literature people were better at describing society than social scientists, social studies people, sociologists. Right? Somehow Charles Dickens' description of poverty seemed to be much more richer and enriched and detailed than the description of, let's say, a person who's trying to study society and make notes and write.
Right.
So then came the positivist revolution in social sciences. They said, we are going to be like science. The literature people are very subjective. We are going to objectively study society. And the positivist revolution gave rise to the rise of social sciences, which kind of mirrored this. But again, they were still doing the same thing. They were still doing contextual work, contextual work, not conceptual work. Right? They were doing conceptual work. Philosophers did conceptual work, and social science and humanities, social sciences, literature did contextual work. Is something making sense for you? What kind of road is history then? What kind of contexts come for history? What kind of background you get? Supposing somebody is coming from Maharashtra, right? Then no, there is one, okay. There is like chai kada. And I say chai kada is tea shop in Kerala. The moment I say it's in Kerala, the whole light bulbs go up in your head, right?
Yeah.
And I say kakada is a dish in Gujarat. The moment I say Gujarat, something blows in your head about kakada or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So that blowing up is actually suddenly putting a background to it. Like I was a blurred background, I back down. I put the background. And you can clearly see I'm in the office with the notice board. And something hit you. Like your room and my room are almost similar because same mahe, same color only.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Probably my table and your tables are the same. They have metal legs, no? Because Manipal mass orders its furniture.
Yeah. Okay.
So the moment you're sitting in Mahe, I'm sitting in Mahe, we exactly know what's happening.
Yeah.
That my Windows update, you all know what is Windows update.
Yeah.
Okay. So the context, so what is the context that history gives?
In a more general term, like
Yeah, general way.
from a Western perspective.
Yeah, Western perspective, but what kind of road is history? What kind of knowledge you get from history?
Oh, past, like
Past,
things that happened.
timelines.
Yeah, timelines. And,
So you
yeah.
do you get a synchronic or a diachronic view? You get a sequence, right?
Yeah, you get a sequence. Yeah.
History is a sequential road.
Yeah.
Do concepts have sequences?
Ooh. Some, yes. They over time they meanings latch on.
Concepts change. What does the truck change or the thing that it carries change?
Things it carries.
Yeah, things it carries.
The truck remains the same.
Yeah.
And here's the secret philosophy. We'll talk about the truck and keep on talking about what it is carrying.
Okay.
I got a whole book out of this. My whole PhD thesis is that. I figured out there's a truck called nature.
Okay.
And then I figured out what all it is carrying from ancient time to modern time.
Oh.
And then I changed the truck. I made it a Sanskrit truck. Prakriti. So what does Prakriti carry? Then I changed the truck and made it into another truck. Let's say, no, I changed the owner of the truck. Bishnoi's truck. What do Bishnoi think of nature? Right? So by just, the truck remained the same. Nature is the foundational concept I'm working on. So philosophers and darshanikas, Indian philosophers, darshanikas work on concepts, truth, knowledge, beauty, rasa, pratibha, panchabhuta, trucks. So the whole world of philosophy is a big truck lot. Logistic company it is. Yeah. I guess you'll never forget this class your whole life.
Probably not.
The metaphor is too strong. Even in my own head, it's becoming too strong. Okay. We'll change halfway through some exams, right? Change it a little. Right. So take a breather. Okay. So concept, context. Okay. Now, I've talked about literature, which is sort of relevant and, a little more like Charles Dickens and those kind of things. They have context. They can also have concept, content, and it can all have in a book can have all three. Okay. The part that has concepts is the philosophical part. The part that has context is the social sciences and literature part. There's another thing which is form and function, like what is in a painting. That is content. Right? That doesn't have words. I can do like, right? It's not Krishna, but my form and my movement are symbolizing something. That's also a truck. This is also carrying something. And my body is carrying it. This movement is a text. It's carrying something. And this particular movement has got content. Comics have content. Instagram reels. They're I think they're sort of empty trucks sometimes.
Yeah.
They're just the truck itself truck is carrying itself. It doesn't need to have something else in it. Music, for instance. Sariga sa sa. Truck is carrying itself. What is Sariga sa sa carrying? Sariga sa sa is carrying Sariga sa sa. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like friend's truck I'm taking for a movie. I'm not carrying anything. The truck is still going on the road, but it doesn't have any content to carry. It has this essence itself.
Ma'am, you use the music Sarigasa is carrying itself, but the meaning to that word is again added by the tune you sing it in.
You can make that music into context and then add a concept.
Then reverse Aditya comes.
You can keep adding. That truck is going. That music doesn't have any meaning by itself. But then you can add one thing and say it's morning raga. Morning raga. The raga is itself not the morning raga. The word morning raga is carrying both the music and the concept. That's why modern art is very pure, good, nice example of content based. Reels.
Yeah.
What meaning is there in reels? See, what I'm trying to do is to break you out of the traditional ways of thinking about philosophy and disciplines and move your mind to a creative level where you're actually doing philosophy. That's why it's a workshop, right? Now, if you look at, for example, a lot of philosophers may scoff at Instagram reels.
Mm.
But it's a very valid human experience. And if you're a current philosopher and you're a Nayayika, you have to do Instagram. Because Nayayikas, there were pots in front of them. They did pots. They didn't go into nation and motherhood. They did pots. They did cows. They did fires and they did cloth. It was all around them. Now Instagram is around. I have to do Instagram if I'm a good Nayayika. Right? So
Yeah.
experience is central to Indian philosophy. And that's why philosophy doesn't depend on which era you're born or whose brain it is. Everybody can count the trucks,
Yeah.
search the trucks. Your entire education system is about finding the trucks, what they carry, where they're going.
Yeah.
And if a teacher can teach you how to find the trucks, where they're carrying or what they're going, you've finished your MA. Seems simple, but that's exactly what you're doing. The entire education system is about finding trucks, what they carry, where they're going.
Okay.
It seems a sort of a relief thing, no?
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. Find those damn trucks. Yeah. So, concept, context, and content. The disciplinary trio. Ganga, Jamuna, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Durga, Saraswati of disciplines. And
So,
when you study the truck that is carrying all these three, you're doing darshana or you're doing philosophy.
Ooh. Combination of context, concept, and content. So the content can keep changing, but the
Content can change. Context will change. Context will change depending on where the bus is going or the truck is going.
Yeah.
The truck will remain the same as long as the word is the same.
The word.
Sometimes when you go, no, they will do jugaad and change the truck. For instance, they will do some jugaad. Let's look at the word nature, for instance, right? In the olden Greek thought, there was no word nature. The truck was called physis. Okay. When physis traveled to Rome, they wanted to translate it. That's why I made you translate.
Okay.
When you translate, you have to change the truck because the roads won't fit.
Okay.
So physis became natura. So wherever the Greeks wrote the word physis, which is psyche, physis, they're opposites, okay?
Okay.
Right? Physis is the word that gives rise to physics also. Things that are there in the world. Then when they went to Rome, when the Romans were translating physis into Roman language, they used the word natura. And natura comes from the word pregnant, the same root word, gnaskor, which means origin, swayambhu. So suddenly the truck physis, when it came, they said this truck won't fit. It is like when they import some cars, they will modify it to suit Indian conditions, right? It's like that. The truck is the same brand, but it changes. The content is the same, but because it suddenly, so imagine taking a big truck and making it into a tempo truck. The content gets messed up and to fit into this new truck. It is like, oh, cabbages, there is another 1 kg left, let's just put onions in it. So they mess up that word. So when Greeks are talking about physis, they're talking about a different conceptualization. But when we are talking, Romans are talking about natura, they're talking about different conceptualization. When we are saying prakriti, we are saying a different conceptualization. They're actually different trucks. They may be trying to carry the same thing in more. So what happens is when we want to say environment, we use the word prakriti. So somebody sent the content called environment into our country and we said, ये वाला ट्रक तो प्रकृति वाला ट्रक में एडजस्ट हो सकता है, उसी में डाल दो. Right? Prakriti is not environment. So when you want to correctly translate, you will go to the epistemological roots or you will go into the etymological roots of that word. Environ, that which surrounds. Parisara is a more accurate translation of environment. Parisar, that which surrounds. So using pari, which means surround, Sara, that which roams around you. Environ, it envelops. Parisara, envelops. So Parisara and environ are closer trucks. Same model. Parisara and environment and Prakriti are different. Nature and Prakriti may be closer trucks. So this is the job. We have to figure out how close they are, how different and how same they are. And especially if you're bilingual, you'll do this. And this happens in Sanskrit and German, every philosophy which is translated. So when you read Heidegger in German, is completely different from when you read him in English. Because somewhere the truck has changed or the content has changed. People figure out, people keep changing. That's why one book will not have one translation, will have 5 translations.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. Question? Somebody had a question.
So the 5 translation will be carrying different trucks. So it's how will we figure out what?
Yeah, what is the?
So you decide which truck you want in your brain, or which is useful for your paper that you use.
But not necessary that the translation that we have adapted is exactly talks about what was written originally in the.
Yes. And so what Paul Ricoeur does is, he says, he does something called philosophical anthropology. He says trucks change over time, they evolve. And we should take into matter that even philosophy has an anthropology. Because the context of philosophy can change its meaning. But that doesn't mean the truck has changed. Right?
Yeah.
So he says it's good to be aware, and sometimes following the historical development of these trucks, how they changed, will actually give you insight into what kind of a word change and why. Supposing you bring back the old meaning, what will happen? It's like vintage, right? Bring back something old and use it for a new purpose. You know, you can use copper vessels which were used for big biryanis for storing, let's say, umbrellas or something.
Yeah.
Right? And so you bring back that thing, you know it is coming from the past. Nothing wrong in using an old truck to transport new things.
Paul Ricoeur. Paul Ricoeur. That R-I-C-K-E-R.
He's very easy to remember his name. He's R-I-C-O, Europe ka 3 words. E-U-R. Europe ka first 3 words. Yeah? So that's how I remember his spelling.
Oh, Paul Ricoeur.
Rico, Europe. Europe ka E-U-R.
R-I-C-O-U-R.
Yeah, he's a nice, I think, what is that book? I'm reading him a lot because it's very, very nice and phenomenological, and he does this whole work on interpretation, hermeneutics. Right? He has a book on interpretation hermeneutics, which is very nice. So, do you all need a break of 5 minutes? Because I'm going to the next phase. So far, any questions about trucks and what they carry? So, and by the way, is it going well? Am I pitching it too lightly? Do you want heavier stuff, or is good, or is
No,
fine?
it's good. I like it.
Okay, right. I'm trying to do a different kind of a workshop. Okay, I originally thought I'll do this whole lecture business, but I thought this would be more interesting for you people. Go to have a truck ride. Yeah.
Definitely better.
Yeah. Take a break. Go use the bathroom. Drink water. Whatever. Yeah. 5 minutes.
Okay.
Hello, Meera ma'am, Arvind here.
Congrats on your book, Da. I didn't say congrats.
Thanks, but it came out a year ago, ma'am.
I know. From then, I've not met you only. No. I sent all LinkedIn message and all, but I don't think anybody will look at the LinkedIn message.
Oh, the LinkedIn. No,
This time I was not able to meet you when I came in June.
Oh, okay.
I'd come to the department in
Yeah,
June.
yeah, Samvartha told me.
I came for this, what is that called?
Some exhibition.
No, monsoon school.
Monsoon school. ಅದೇ ಹೇಳಿದ ಅವನು. I actually, we were at a common meeting recently, research.
Oh, our meeting, a stupid meeting, okay. I am losing my patience with the DOR, yeah.
ಹೌದು ರೀ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಎಂತ ಹೇಳುದವ್ರಿ ಸ್ಕೋಪಸ್
Ultane. You are
ತಿಂತಾರೆ
supposed
ತಲೆ
to do work on sustainability and then get yourself cited. You're not supposed to randomly put sustainability words in your essay and become one.
ಅದೇ ಸ್ಕೋಪಸ್ ಅಂತ ತಲೆ ತಿಂತಾರೆ ಮೇಡಮ್
Huh?
ಸ್ಕೋಪಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ
I'm presenting in Princeton.
ವಾವ್ ಓಕೆ
You're the only one who's saying wow. You're
ಯಾಕೆ
asking me, is it a Scopus Index conference?
you're going to Princeton
No, I don't
or
have visa,
online?
da. I don't have visa.
Oh,
So I'm presenting by Zoom, but they said that you please apply and keep. So next year when we have the conference, we'll call you back again. It
okay.
was a full expenses paid trip, with my heart broke because of the visa. It expired. See, I became very depressed. It expired sometime in COVID. After that, I thought I'll never be able to go. See, Manipal University, Jaipur and all, I didn't think I'd be able to. I sort of lost confidence in myself. Okay. And then I said, no, I cannot. And that whole thing, getting out from MCPH was also traumatic, right?
Oh.
Then Jaipur also, I got a Q1 paper, but then I was father was not well. And I kind of didn't think that I would ever go abroad. Not to.
Actually, I want to have a longer call with you about this journal business. So give me some time when I can call you.
Yes. Most days, Ivaga Satyake timetable has not come. Next week, no, most days around 11ish, I'm free.
Morning, is it?
Mornings. You just message me and say, are you free? I'll say yes, and then we can have a call.
Okay,
Meet madam.
Yakandre, I'm finding it difficult to, find proper journals for my disciplines.
I'll tell you how to overcome that.
I was listening to this whole concept, context, content, truck business. Very interestingly put. I couldn't join earlier, actually.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I ate into your break.
No. I already had my coffee as people were doing, as I was talking. Okay. I'm now in I'm on superwoman mode because we have 300 students in TAPME. Last time I thought 189 students. Yeah.
Oh man.
So I have given up on, and the energy levels required are quite different.
Shish. Okay. So your classes, each class consists of how many students?
60.
Oh wow. Okay.
Ivaga 5 sections barta idare. So I will teach luckily for me, TAPME has got very good teaching hour policy.
That's
150 hours only. So I have only one section, one class to teach this semester.
Wow, that's nice. But yes, I suppose you have to make up with research.
Yes, TAPME research is one Q1 paper every year or A star.
I submitted 2 different papers to this MFS anta ondide, Modern Fiction Studies anta journal. They rejected my paper twice. I mean, different papers.
They're not even accepting Web of Science now, is it?
Web of Science ನನಗೆ ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. See, ma'am,
Web of Science has got more literature. Anyway, we'll have the longer call. I'll help you how to.
Yes. I am sorry.
Now I'm in that place where Purushottam Bilimoria is asking me to co-write papers with him. So I'm safe that I told him, if you want me to work on these things, you have to publish it in Sofia. So that's the deal. So it's like, okay, I will publish it in Sofia. You do this work for me.
Sofia is a journal, is it?
Yeah, philosophy journal. The thing is, he wants me to work on a lot of things. And he's giving me these projects because I'm working very freshly, I'm working on trucks. So he wants me to work on some trucks. And I said, if I can't publish, I can't work on them. So for every chapter I write for him, for some book, I want him to give me a paper. So he said, okay, you write. He has 3 papers. So each year I'll write 1 paper with him. It's an intercultural philosophy, Eastern and Western combined.
Okay.
So so now I'm working on Ritco.
Is he also at TAPME?
No, he's wandering. Purushottam Bilimoria is wandering around, no? He's now, I
Oh,
think,
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
Berkeley
yeah.
now, or he is now in Australia. No, he's also coming down to, no, he's flying back from, he was in Rome. They just finished, no? Philosophy Across Boundaries, 1st to 9th August, Rome.
Oh, okay.
Which for Srini also didn't go. Also, they were charging a lot of money. Okay, we'll go back into the session.
Yes, sorry.
Everyone is back? People, you know why they call it the masters? Because at the end of the master's program, you think you know everything. Then when you start doing your PhD, you're like, attacks, you'll come down. Undergrad, you don't know anything, you're just sure you're learning. When you come to the master's, at the end of the master's, you feel, I know everything. And when you
Excuse me,
start your
madam.
PhD,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
We are ready, ma'am.
We are ready, ma'am.
So whenever you want.
yeah, I'm talking to you only.
Yes,
I'm not master.
So we got one question.
Yes.
So when you talked about translating from one language to another language, so suppose I have, like, in the beginning of the session you pointed out that philosophy, the concept of the philosophy is very different from the concept of darshana. At the same time, I have done some literature reading in epistemology, and I have come across scholars' opinion that anumana, which is an epistemic tool in Indian philosophy, it does not have an English equivalent. The for want of better term, in English we use inference. Although the concept of inference is very different from the concept of anumana. So my question is that when we are translating from one language to another language, doesn't it lead to reductionism, the fallacy of reductionism?
It does. But it also leads to the fallacy of, it doesn't need to, see the word, when you're saying it does, reductionism is itself a Western concept. Okay.
I mean,
right. The frame itself is Western. Now, that is what is happening. The frame is Western. Now, let me tell you this, okay? Let me give you the Indian philosophical equivalence of the philosophy of translation from my paper, Dhura Binna. Right?
Okay.
The conceptual framework I use for comparing two terms in Indian philosophy and Western philosophy, let's take anumana and inference. Right? Now, two trucks. Okay? So when the truck is going, it is carrying cabbages. When it comes to Indian philosophy, it's actually cauliflower, but we are saying cauliflower is cabbage. Or we are calling bhindi lady's finger. When we call bhindi lady's finger, I'm using a left, because anumana is again a truck, it has too many meanings. So I'm using a simpler example. Let's say that bhindi is there and we're calling it lady's finger, or we're calling it okra. Do you know the word for bhindi is okra? Right. Okra beans. It's not beans, but they call it okra beans. Okay. Americans. Okra, I think, is the African word for it. I think it comes from Africa. I'm not sure. But anyway, okra, bhindi, lady's finger. Are we reducing bhindi to lady's finger?
No.
Something is happening. Bhindi is not lady's finger, because lady's finger.
I mean, it's a different meaning.
Yeah, so something is happening to that, right? So if there's an object, I can pick up the bhindi and show you bhindi, right? Chashma, I can pick up the chashma and say, ye chashma hai. Topi, hat, bucket hat. Top, balti, topi. So the point is, we can see this as a challenge, okay, which is called the incommensurability problem, the problems of translation. We don't have equivalence, problems of equivalence. Dr. Sundar writes a nice paper on the problems of translation. Okay, it's written a lot on translation. Even translators have talked about untranslatability. There are terms. But what happens when you do these things is you're saying, FASTag nahi ja sakta. And a truck comes to a halt. And as philosophers, our job is not to find the potholes, but our job is to continue on a journey of reflection.
Okay.
So how do you do, wait, yeah, 1 second. How do you do philosophy with these kind of problems of translation? You turn translation into a method of doing philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay. And how does that method work? So I have been working with it because I've been working in Indian philosophy when you have to write for foreign journals. You have to continuously use, and continuously Videshi people will tell you that your meanings are wrong. Okay. Let me give you a recent example where I actually made a real mistake. Okay. In Rasa theory, there is a word called bhava. You know what is bhava? All of us Indians understand bhava.
Yeah.
ಭಾವುಕ್ತ ಸೆ ಭರ್ ಗಯೆ ಭಾವ ತುಂಬಿ ಹಾಡಿದರು. ಓಕೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಭಾವ ಇತ್ತು ಅವರ ಹಾಡಲ್ಲಿ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಭಾವ ಇತ್ತು ಅವರ ಆಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ. कितना भाव था उसके आवाज में. We know what bhava is. I translated bhava as affect.
Okay.
Now in psychology, I forgot. Okay, I just was so much involved in philosophical thinking, I forgot the discipline of context. In psychology, what is affect? Affect, behavior, cognition.
Yeah.
But affect doesn't belong in the world of bhava. Emotional is the word actually. But I use the word affect, forgetting that affect has a very specific disciplinary meaning in psychology. And I got thrashed by my reviewers. Okay. Then I was first upset with them. Why they were, then I realized this is Sunday. I realized. So when I'm looking at my paper, I suddenly realized, "Arre, truck to ye Pune ja raha tha, Delhi ja raha hai." Okay. So that's one. Then translating this word, sahridayatva, in Abhinav Gupta, same-heartedness. Nice. Okay. Anumana. What do you do when you do anumana? Hazarding a guess. You speculate. You accurately speculate with evidence. So can we translate anumana as evidence-based speculation? EBS.
To an extent.
Right? So we can work through our translation by using sentences. That is for our purposes. But we can also talk about the frame of when we have two words which are equivalences and translated to each other in the world, because that's already been done by a lot of people. So you take anumana, you take inference. Dura, bhinna. Where did I pick up this word dura, bhinna from? In the Upanishad. As I'm speaking this, learn how philosophy is being done. I'm doing philosophy with you. As I'm doing, I'm actually doing a lab experiment, philosophy lab experiment for you. So watch how I'm thinking. I am reading Kathopanishad, and then I'm reading Kathopanishad just normally, and then Yama says something. He says, Vidya and Avidya are both Dura and Bhinna. Right? I'm just not exactly quoting him, but somewhere the sentence is that Avidya, ignorance or non-knowledge. Let's exactly translate, okay? Non-knowledge, not unknowledge, but non-knowledge, and Vidya, knowledge, are Dura. What does Dura mean?
For distant.
Distant. And also Bhinna. Different. And I got stuck in that. That truck was very interesting. Dura truck and Bhinna truck. Then I started looking at my culture, because in India, most words are available, most trucks are roaming around in open air. They are not in some books of philosophers, okay? So where do you use the word dur ka desh, dur ka rishtedar? The distance, right? What is possible in distance? Reduction of distance is possible. So between physis and nature, the distance is large, because one comes from the word origin. Its context is about origins. This context is about existence. Anumana is evidence-based, inductive-based reasoning, and inference is something else, which is a logical process, which follows from, let's say, syllogisms. Right? Syllogistic thinking doesn't exist. The modern Indian philosophers have put syllogistic thinking into Nyaya philosophy and said, wherever smoke, there fire. It doesn't exist like that. If you read the original, it's like, as in the case of the kitchen fire. So they use the word in the example, no, wherever smoke, there fire. Smoke, therefore fire, as in the case of the kitchen fire. My own Professor Sundar Sarukai writes it like that, and he says Indians have logic to convince the West. For me, I have a problem with that, because when I read the original, which I think all the pundits also have this problem, when I read the original, it didn't say as in the case of. There's no word for case and all. Case study and all is not there. Yatha mahanase, as in the kitchen. घर के आग जैसा. घर के आग जैसा is not syllogistic in its form. So don't you think they've taken cabbage, diced it up to look like cheese?
Yes.
Right? So it is dura. But cabbage and cheese are bhinna. When you keep a tree and a seed, when you look at it across time, the seed can become the tree. At one point of time, anumana became inference. Historically, anthropologically, philosophical anthropology. Inference, as that's the word inference, like a mouse which had a tail became a mouse which had a wire. Dura, with time, words modify their meanings, contents change. Gobi becomes Manchurian from sambar, right? Things change. So this change is dura. How far the change? Spices and Prakriti, they are closer because they are the same age. Spices, Prakriti and environment, dura. It's my great grandson. Right? So timeline wise, together when you place them, you can see the difference. So the framework of taking a word and its translation, you can see how close they are, how far they are, by looking at their timeline of conceptual changes, or you can look and see how different they are when you place them next to each other. So when you look at jati and caste,
Yeah.
right? When you look at desh and nation, dura bhinna. This is now dura bhinna is not a Western framework. Difference in distance is straight from the Kathopanishad. Right? So people say, how do you develop Indian theories of thought? This is how you start. 10 years down the line, they'll have a seminar on this, and then they give more truck meanings to my own words. I'm just saying it as a light thing now. Later, they'll have a seminar on Meera Bahindur's Dura and Bin. I know that. That's what happens to philosophers. And then they'll add more trucks and more embellishments, and it'll become, to read what I have said will take you 100 years and 3 translations. I'm just making a joke in a classroom, right? They'll say, why did she crack a joke at that point of time? What was its significance? That's what we do to the Mahabharata. That's what we do to the Kathopanishad, right? That's what I'm doing to poor Nachiketa and Yama. They just said, Duracha Bhinnacha. What he meant to say was that non-knowledge, which is ignorance, can become knowledge with time. But ignorant people are not knowledgeable. Potential is distance. Binary is difference, to put it in modern terms. Isn't it interesting? This is because somewhere when you're reading, when you're looking for the trucks, you suddenly realize this truck nobody has seen before. New model. Then you put it, and then you apply. Now the Dura Bhinna can be applied. It's a universal theory now. You can apply it to anything. You can apply it to Arvinda's field also. Wordsworth and Kalidasa. How Dura they are, how Bhinna they are. Apply it to translations, apply it to concepts, apply it to different type of contents. So Dura becomes a syllogistic, like syllogism, it becomes a framework of reference for understanding. And that is what is doing philosophy. A reflective process in which you are looking at the trucks or looking at concepts, taking into account their content and context. If you focus too much on the context and the content, you're doing literature and social sciences. So that's why when you're doing the PhD, if you're doing a study, let's say you're studying, let us say, intuitive ways of buying sustainable products is your PhD. Okay? Doing that PhD, if you just go and take surveys of hundreds of people doing this, you're not. You're going to reflect philosophically on what is this truck called intuition and how it shows up in the world. And then you prove that this is the way things are bought. Otherwise, it's an MA project. If there's no philosophy, it doesn't become a PhD. So at the base of true education, at the base of philosophical, any kind of education, the theoretical underpinnings, what we call theory, is nothing but conceptual understandings. There are other ways, I'm not saying the other ways of doing this, is one of the ways in which you can understand philosophy, which is easy for you to study. So when you want to deepen your paper, so it's very easy when I think of this meaning-bearing words, right? Words that bear meaning are concepts. They also have what Kate Soper refers to as a symbolic load, because they not only bear direct meanings, like smoke means that blue thing, that tree means a tree, but they also bear symbolic loads, like words like caste. They're holding whole histories, Dalit, oppression, everything is there and stuck in that word. Right? So when I say inclusion, the word inclusion may be a simple word, but when I say use the word inclusion, it holds a whole host of history, geography, philosophy, everything is there in that. So it's a very large, it's a very mega word. So when we start using these mega words, we sometimes are not clear that we have holistically covered the entire range of meanings it carries. So before you write a paper or before you philosophize, you say, I know this word carries so many meanings, but I'm going to just check the cabbages and the onions which are there. You say that I'm going to only look at the truck when it is going from Manipal to Kundapur. I'm not, after Kundapur, what it carries, I'm not bothered. So I'm looking at Dura Binna from the Kathopanishad. I'm not looking at it from Gujarati Rishtedar, Dur ki Rishtedar, Nazdiki Rishtedar. That I'll go and anthropologically check how Dura is a Dur ki Rishtedar. That's a different thing. I'm not doing that. I'm just looking at the Kathopanishad meaning of Vidya and Avidya, potential and difference, and creating a theory of difference and distance. To understand, translate it between two things, any two concepts. Two trucks I'll take and I'll do this. It can be translated. So when you translate, how far and how different it becomes gives you an idea of what it was and what it was. So sometimes a word is not clear until you translate. If you notice what you wrote in English and now look at what you wrote in Kannada, you'll see how different it is. That's why I'm saying when you say prashnisodu, prashne, is it kutuhala or is it prashne or is it exploration? What is it? So when you try to translate, you're trying to capture the content of the truck. And many times this can go wrong, terribly wrong, but it's okay. Because I'll tell you what, whatever the philosopher does in the head, it is never going to blow up. It never has a chance of blowing up the world of 0.007% like CERN. You know that big CERN thing is there, no?
Yeah.
When they're doing the God particle experiment, they said there's a 0.00009% of blowing up the world because of our experiment. I'm like, did you take my permission or what? You did this. So we can do anything in our thought experiment. The Charvakas wanted to find out if the soul is there or not. The Charvakas suggest an experiment of taking a guy who is sentenced to death, putting him in a pot of oil, weighing that oil, sealing it tightly, boiling him off, and then checking if the weight is different. Nobody died. It was a Charvaka thought experiment. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. Luckily, they were not scientists, they were philosophers. Yeah.
But my question is, the meaning of the word can also change according to the context it's used in.
So yeah, so take the context and put the same word into context. Then see what is the dura binna between them.
Okay, so
That's what I said. The meaning of the word is this mouse, right? Mouse and mouse. How are the two mouses? How are the two mice? Should we say mice? No, mouses, because they are two different jatis, right? So how are the mouses different? Like fish and fishes, I'm using the same rule. How are the two mouses different? Because this mouse, how is it different? It looks the same.
Device. Other
The
is
form is the same, right?
Hmm.
Probably that's why they called it a mouse. It looks like a mouse with a tail, black color. If you made blue mouses, I wonder whether they would have been like a different name. Right?
So, ma'am, you're telling that context is more important than the word. Like
No, you can use the context or you can use the concept. The concept is what you study in philosophy. If you study the context, you'll be studying history. Yeah. Depending on which discipline you want to focus on, you focus on context, you'll end up with history, anthropology, social sciences. Sometimes content is very high in literature. For example, in the case of novels, I had one also warning. As social science and philosophy students, you will face these engineers who will come and say, why are you writing so complicatedly? Write simple. So they will say, tum sundar ho. Not chand ka tukda mere samne aaya. Imagine if we converted, reduced all the world's poetry, and they'll say AI writes such beautiful poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather. So this here's something. As humanities students, here's a nice reply you can give. Okay, I tell them I want AI to clean my shit and do my laundry, and I will write poetry.
I've seen this before. Yeah.
Say this to everyone who says AI, because you're in that stupid engineering campus where people keep telling you these things. Like use AI for your paper. I don't want my AI to write my novel. I'll write my novel. You clean my shit, you clean the drains, you lay the roads, you do heavy labor, you wash the dishes. AI can do all that. I have full permission it has. But my poetry, my novel, I am writing. It basically data mines Google and writes stuff. AI generation is basically data mining other people's creativity and writing it. Imagine changing all the beautiful poems imagine changing all the Hindi songs and Tamil songs, everything into, Vennilave Vinay Tandi Varuvaya. You change it to some, reductionist, simple way of writing. So one of the things is, that's why I made you write. Now, what is the difference between you thinking and what is the difference between you writing? Can somebody share what happened when you started writing the meaning? When you scribed?
When we think, it was more free flowing. But when we write, we have
More concrete.
Yeah, it's more concrete. It's more, it's more like in a square. But when you're thinking, it's like a circle.
So therefore, good
Square.
philosophy is ordered thinking. So we don't think philosophy, we write philosophy. At least in the modern world, when you write, it is easier to do philosophy when you write philosophy. And it's my own bias. I think it's better in a pen. Because you know why? You don't have a delete function. Because you don't have a delete function, you have to scratch, right?
Yeah.
You have to restart. So the thought has to be well-formulated, logical, ordered thought. And in a few years, that's what happened. When I was young, I was thinking all over the place. As a young philosopher, I used to think all over the place. Now, would you believe? Do you think, now I'm giving you this whole lecture, right? Do you think I have notes in front of me or not?
No.
Does this session have a sequence?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a proper lesson, no? Or is it
Yeah.
random? I know I make random jokes, that's different. But so can you see point 1, definition of philosophy, point 2, language, context, concept, ideas of philosophy, decoloniality, how to do philosophy in Indian thought, translation and philosophy. Can you see these topics?
Yes.
This ordered thinking I did not have. This is in here. It is not on the notebook. I
Yeah.
didn't prep for today's class. And straight come to the class and give you the class. So this ordered thinking comes because I started thinking like a philosopher. It took years, okay, of doing philosophy, reading, thinking, reflecting. Then you start to get that philosophical thinking, you become a philosopher. You are a philosopher. So like engineers think engineering all the time. There's a time when you have to apply engineering in your head and then do. And there's a time when it becomes you. So it's also learning a new language. In the beginning, you're translating continuously. At one point of time, you're speaking the language directly out. So when you do philosophy, you become a philosopher, you're being a philosopher, and then you philosophize naturally in your head. Ordered thinking is always there. So when people come to me with some sentences, no, editing, tuck, 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 I'll immediately edit. I'll find one mistake is there, nobody will know, and I'll find that. Because that ordered thinking is so clear. Category mistake, putting one thing on another. Syllogism mistakes, ordered thinking, introductory sentence first, then no evidence, all that logic, illogic, all that comes, but it hits you. It's like your mother will just taste the rasam and say, less pepper. So that happens with training and reading and writing. So in the beginning, it is always good to do drafts and write and train your mind. So later the writing becomes, you scribe in your brain and your brain itself becomes the writing equipment. Right? Then you can also, so when the first time I went to Oregon for a conference, I met Donna Haraway, right? She was speaking like a textbook. That's what I remember. I kept saying, she's speaking like a textbook. She didn't have a paper, but the words she was speaking, it was as if she was reading a speech from a written text. And I was like, I want to speak like her. And now when I go and give speeches, it is like that. It is like a textbook. Because I didn't realize it's a skill you can develop by reading and thinking and writing. I write and read like a textbook. When I become a novelist, so I can also tell stories like a novel. When I start telling stories, I'm telling story to my neighbor in the auditorium, 4 people around behind, everyone listens. Because it's interesting. I've already got the audience hooked into my story. So you become somebody whom people listen to. You become Shashi Tharoor. As you're speaking, people listen to your take notes. So it is a development. So skill development. So philosophy is nothing but give up all this, oh, it's so difficult, meta thinking, overthinking. Philosophy is nothing but ordered thinking about trucks. I hope all of you will be able to do easy philosophy from now on. Right? It's just trucks, where they are going, what they're carrying. We should relabel this session as philosophy of trucking or the philosophy of okay. So ordered thinking, writing, reading, and therefore languages form a kind of a base for this. And because higher order thought requires language, language becomes central to doing reading and thinking philosophy. So many times when we read philosophical thought, the reason we find sometimes philosophy very difficult is the very same reason that he pointed out. We can't use anumana instead of inference. Sometimes philosophers struggle to name the truck that is carrying that, right? So they want to name a thing and they sometimes invent words for it, or they want to kind of be very precise and not miss. You shouldn't be seeing cauliflowers where there are cabbages. So you want to be very precise. You want to convey it in language across cultures, across everything. So philosophy therefore becomes, on one side, people got so fed up, they said words are so horrible. We're going to do well-formed, we're going to make the words mean something very particular. So let's replace words with mathematical formulas. And they went to analytical philosophy. Right? S is P, right? So because words are difficult. They're like very loose. This suddenly truck, you think it's carrying tomatoes and it's carrying cabbages. I don't want, let me not call it a truck. Let it be X. I don't know, as a tempo traveler or a truck or a Tata or whatever. I don't want to have all these problems. Let's call it X is carrying meaning M. X to the power of M. Even the word implies will put an arrow, one symbol like that. They moved to symbolic logic. They wanted to be very precise. They wanted order to be very well represented. Right? And so that moved into another set of people came and said, no, all this symbolic and all. I want to experience. I want to focus on what the body is doing, what's happening to us when we are moving through this world. So it's not just about that. Let's see what's happening around us. Let's not worry about what the truck is carrying. Let's look at what's on the surface of the truck. Truck is going. Where is it going? Phenomenology.
Just a query, Meera ma'am, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as you know, I joined late, but this your lecture has got me hooked, and I'm interested. So you said that we have to consider what the trucks are carrying in order to translate, correct? So then my query, probably which you have already addressed, still I'll go ahead and ask, is does this not then allow you to do, allow you to translate from philosophical writing, which is done in a different part of the world altogether, because you might have similar content, but in different, language perhaps in
Exactly.
India.
Yeah, true. And so suddenly you realize that the Greek spices is very close to Prakriti.
Yes, which I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah,
So then,
so you may
don't you
realize
think
that, but then you will
it,
say historically. So when you do philosophy, you're only bothered about what the truck is carrying. But what they'll say is, the point where people jump is, oh, the Indians taught the Greeks. That is not necessary.
yes, precisely.
So Shankaracharya went to Greece and taught this disciple of Diogenes. Doesn't work, okay?
No, yeah,
That is context.
yes.
So as far as concept is concerned, we'll work with the concept. So that is what happens. That's where they make the mistake. We also have to know that, okay, these are similar concepts. They are at the same time, when you keep them together, they are only bhinna. You can look at the bhinnate. The durate, if you want to say, you can say the Greek concept of physis moved into Rome, historical anthropology or philosophical anthropology, as Ricardo would call it. You see how the concept of evil has developed from, he did a study on evil and he studied the Greco-Roman myths and then he moved to the fall of Eden. I have studied the progression of the idea of nature, right?
Correct.
So idea of nature is, see, that's what I'm saying, the trucks which carry other trucks. Nature is a truck which is being carried by different words, different truck words like nature, prakriti and all that.
Got it.
There's some original truck word called nature or some experiential word called nature.
So I'm coming from the literary studies perspective. So this whole, oft parroted, idea that there are non-translatables or untranslatables, that's not as black and white as it looks.
No, it's not. They are untranslatable. The point is they are looking at words as if they are sacrosanct and not as bearers of meaning. And often what is untranslatable is the cultural metaphors.
Right.
Kicking the bucket. Even as we say kicking the bucket, we forget the context of kicking the bucket.
Absolutely, yeah.
So one student actually used the word kicking the bucket. He said, my grandfather kicked the bucket. Okay, kicking the bucket is not dying. Kicking the bucket is a certain type of tragic death. You stand on the bucket of the fan. So kicking the bucket doesn't mean marna. Okay, 9 to 11 hona has a metaphoric or idiomatic phrases. These are difficult to translate because they're cultural. Because they're not only holding the truck is also holding culture in that. Right? For example, the most difficult words for me to translate are words of endearment. Take the South Indian word for your love, right? Mama, macha. Now it comes from the whole kinship anthropology of where you marry your mother's younger brother. That is incestual in another culture. Like in North India, it's absolutely no. भाई से शादी किया, wrong. मामा से शादी नहीं करते. यहाँ पे मामा is your legitimate husband, kinship husband. First to the mother's brother and then to the rest.
Right.
Atta and mama. So how you translate atta and mama? Uncle. He's not uncle. Whereas when I was looking at K-drama, this hit me. They use the word oppa. Oppa is used as a term of endearment for your brother and your lover.
Oh.
Isn't it? Wow. There's a K-drama person there. Yeah. Oppa is also elder brother. Oppa is also lover. Oppa is also like friend also.
It's the same with Malayalam. In Kerala also, elder brother is known as Cheta and husband also they call the equal Cheta.
It comes from a certain cultural thing. It's a term. Therefore, it is not a kinship relation. It is a dura bhinna relation. The closer you are, the more oppa, the more acha you are. These words are untranslatable, but I can still analyze. They're untranslatable, but they're not uninterpretable.
Right. No, but how do you interpret it as the dura bhinna relation?
So when you look at it from bhinna, in the Western framework, a father is very different from a husband.
Correct.
A brother is very different from a lover.
Correct.
But when you look at it in terms of how far these words are, what is the distance relationship between these two words, you realize in the context of love, close people are referred to by that word.
Okay. So it does not imply anything, improprietous or whatever.
Yeah, because impropriety is given by culture. That's why I said cultural words are intranslatable. Cultures are intranslatable.
Right.
But words are not. Words are bearers of cultural meaning. So what we have to say is, in these kind of words, we have to give hermeneutics. We have to put a footnote and say, in Kerala culture, acha is a term which is referring to endearment and not kinship relations. We have to write that. And if you're a Western anthropologist, you cannot understand how a truck which carries kinship relations is also carrying the terms of endearment. You're saying this is not a truck, this is an auto rickshaw. So look at it as an auto rickshaw. And those people say, no. Acha is always used as, we use it in both ways. For us, it's normal to use acha for a kinship word. It's normal to use acha for a love word. We know where we understand. So that is why that whole Sanskrit grammarian theories of meaning say context gives meaning. Mimamsa says every word has got to have tatparya, but tatparya before that there's akanksha, right? There's an expectation. There's also, let me just go with me thing. I'll have it right here. So you will have akanksha, yogyata, then there is samnidhi and tatparya. These are the 4 words. If you go and refer to this book, which is called Kunjuni Raja Theories of Meaning, you will get it in the Mimamsa. These are all ways in which words are interpreted. So all these function to give the context of the word. So when we are translating Indian words, we use Kunjuni Raja and say, these are the things we are looking for in the truck.
Got it.
But what happens is we mostly use biblical hermeneutics to translate.
Yeah.
Which is interpretative equivalences. So what will an Indian theory, I'm actually writing a paper on Mimamsa hermeneutics. And what will an Indian hermeneutics, the person who comes closest to it is Paul Ricoeur. his hermeneutics comes very close because he's kind of trying to do a cultural thing. Unfortunately, he didn't read Indian philosophy. Otherwise, we'd have had a good time, right? But trying to look at different. So we're in Indian philosophy, we still have a long way to go to study rasa, to study hermeneutics. I was checking for a paper. The last paper which was written on Mimamsa hermeneutics, I think, is Purushottam Belimoria's. He gave a 1957 paper. He's a Mimamsa scholar. After that, there have been textbooks and all that, translations and all, but there's not been a serious academic paper. I'm like struggling to searching
1991,
finger
is it?
taste of. Carl, if you have any papers, you can send it to me. Auchitya, I'm looking at. Aupatya and Auchitya of Mimamsa. And Srini also, if he's around. Yeah.
Okay, I would not say that comes to my mind right now, but if it
But if
comes
you
to
find something on Mimamsa hermeneutics, send me the paper. I'm like paper hunting. Like I'm searching for the trucks. Yeah.
okay.
Right.
Have you
Okay.
looked in late Professor Jha's writing on Mimamsa? You
Yeah,
might
I'm
find
looking at
something in
that.
the bibliography there.
I'm looking at his book. I'm using that.
Okay.
But I'm not finding, you have to cite some modern hermeneutics kind of papers, right? So, Billy Moria is the one I'm writing the paper with. So, he's given me one or two references. But I'm also trying to, and I'm using Kunjuni Raja a little bit. But I have lots of work on hermeneutics, but Mimamsa hermeneutics is a little bit. I find more work on Nyaya hermeneutics and stuff like that. And later, Abhinav Gupta, Bhatrihari, all those people. But Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, I'm sitting and reading Karl Potter. Because that's where I'm now left to. Reading all the texts of Purva Mimamsa. Shabara I'm looking at. So, yeah, that's how it is. Okay, questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So, thinking, writing, trucks, meaning bearing word, concept, context, conceptualizations, hermeneutics, frameworks, translations, interpretations, writing, ordered thinking, everything, and we've finished doing some philosophy. What you did now is philosophy. It's 4 o'clock.
Yes. Okay. Context, concept, and content. Content. How interchangeable are these when we are actually actively dealing with not all three of them, but especially when we're doing philosophy when it comes to content. How much can you play with the content?
Yeah, you can see content when it changes, doesn't much. That is why you can tell the Mahabharata like a comic book. You can do multimodal presentations of things.
Yeah.
The content can change easily without changing the context and concept.
Okay.
So graphic novels are as valid ways of, or oral histories are as valid ways of telling history as history. Right? You can tell a story, you can write a story. You can sing a song, you can write a song. Right? So content in the sense is the ultimate product which comes out where you're expressing your context and concept. So content is, when you measure content, when you're comparing content, it is people say it's shallow. It's not shallow. It's as important to measure and compare content as it is to, because the very experience of you experiencing that content will change the concept. So the question we want to ask is, if you make a graphic novel of philosophy, does it reduce the weightage of that philosophy that's being taught? Right? So does Ship of Theseus change the philosophy of Ship of Theseus? Is diluting it? This whole word, nowadays what happens is there's this whole academic arrogance of of epistemology, which says like epistemic, it's a sort of epistemic injustice, which talks about deep, penetrative, more than the skin, more than surface level. All these are all metaphors that come from certain kinds of patriarchal thinking. Right?
Yeah.
It is that until, it's literally, if you want to put it in a very crude way, until you have kind of slept with a woman, you don't know her.
Yeah.
Coming from a deeply sexual, metaphorical idea of epistemology. And we feminists are very much up in it. What's wrong with skin surface thinking? Nothing. It's also equally valid knowledge. So therefore, we can never find a Dalit philosophy because we think Dalit philosophy is shallow. You see the epistemic injustice there. We think there is no philosophy in a Mungfaliwala statements. Because it's not deep, it's not penetrative, it doesn't have huge words. But he is having trucks, no.
Yeah.
Who will, Sundar Saruka and Gopal Guru used to ask this question every day. Who will do a philosophy of hunger if not for the hungry man? You and I with our well-fed stomachs will never philosophize on hunger. We don't know what it is. Injustice can be only philosophized in the sense I'm making a claim for the, even if it is shallow or whatever they call it, it has to come from the experience of people. And that experience, we have to allow for philosophies to indulge in those experiences and indulge in the trucks. And then otherwise it causes. So what we do is that when we change the content, we say, oh, this content is very light. Okay, there is nothing called light or wrong, but there is something called presentation in content, right? You can have the same Hindi movie, which is just hero marries heroine. And that's the only theme. But there's one movie that really pulls your heart and makes a great deal out of it. The other movie just goes through. It's the same Rajinikanth. In one movie, he'll be like fabulous, and the other he won't. So content does make a difference, but it doesn't make it shallow or deeper. People go to modern art and live. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything because it's not supposed to mean anything.
Yeah.
You're supposed to look at the content and not the context. Oh, this is all fully gray. Are you depressed? He said, no. You're depressed when you wrote it because gray. In your culture, gray is depressing. In my culture, gray is Krishna.
Yeah, exactly.
Monsoon clouds, we celebrate.
Yeah.
Where is this? So that's what I'm saying. Most of the places where you'll find little problems, they're all cultural. So that is why in modern times, it's important to have intercultural philosophy as a background. Remember, you're working across cultures. I am not an Indian philosopher.
Okay.
I am a product of modern education, trained in Western philosophy and Indian philosophy. So I am a hybrid.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because Socrates is coming out of one mouth and Veda is coming out of the other side. It's basically, I keep telling people, it's like either it is, pizza curry with rasam sadam, or curd rice on pizza topping.
Oh my God.
That's my brain. That's a faluda. That's the best word. Faluda is the better word. Nice, more aesthetic word. There's noodles in my ice cream, so I'm a faluda ice cream. or the one, if you have not already tried, I think you're new, gadbad. Mangaloreans are the best, gadbad. So that is what we are all. We are neither Indian philosophers nor Western philosophers. We are gadbad and faluda. So we can't claim, I can't claim I'm an Indian philosopher because I didn't go to a matha and study I don't speak in Sanskrit, right? Nor can I call myself a Western philosopher because I'm not fond of Kant at all. And then I've done half people and I haven't done half. Leibniz, Berkeley and all are out of my head. I don't know what they did, okay? I did all the phenomenologists, some Kant. I did a lot of Kant, sorry, not some. Forced to do Kant, and then I did a lot of ethics, and I do a lot of modern geophenomenologists and phenomenologists, Husserl and Heidegger and all those people. I did yoga, I did Sankhya, but I left out the entire analytical philosophy. I don't like it, so I just left it out of my brain. I did it, but I passed the exam and forgot. And then the other one is like, Buddhism, I like some parts of it. Vijnanavada, but I don't like Shunyavada. I tried reading Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyama Karika. I gave up after 2 sentences. They're too heavy on my head. There's other things to read, right? And so it's like, that doesn't make me any less of a philosopher or any greater of a philosopher. It's just my style of gadbad. So find your own gadbad and be true to that. That's enough. And don't surrender to epistemic injustices. And be aware that the other people are other gadbads. They can go along doing their philosophy. It's fine. So people say, why don't you work on? And I'm like, because I just don't want to work on it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
It's your philosophy.
Yeah.
Geophenomenology, what is that?
Geophenomenology. It's applying phenomenology to the world of nature and environment as you encounter it.
Okay.
So I write a paper like, it's also called ecophenomenology. So I'm writing a paper about our relationship to the elements of nature, which is like mud, grass, leaf. And I actually talk about the whole idea of consumption, because our first encounter with all these things is we put it in our mouth.
Yeah, yeah. That's true.
We eat mud.
Yeah.
We eat mud, leaf, grass, stone.
Yeah.
It's a very psychological thing. First time we encounter these things, we put it in our mouth. So we don't look at it. Looking is a later sense. We learn to appreciate nature through vision at a later sense. The first is through our taste. It's a very Freudian thing also, but it's not based on his theories of whatever, right? Id, ego, and all. I feel that the materiality of nature is experienced through the act of licking. And so I'm talking about our encounters with nature through our embodied beings. And also there are a lot of passages in Upanishads and other places which talk about it. And that develops into a very complicated theory of Ayurveda where we eat our soil.
Eat a?
Soil.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
The land gets into the plants and then gets into your food through the plants. So you eat the soil. देश की मिट्टी खाते हैं. This देश की पानी और मिट्टी खाया है. So if you eat from many days, different panis, your character becomes loose because you have no loyalty to the land. So your loyalty and your desh ka mitti are. So this is all geophenomenological, a way of looking at the political and the social through the act of eating. And eating mud, basically. So this is the paper I'm writing. So the geophenomenology. Also, we can look at walking, right? Deepta, my professor Deepta, who's my colleague in the research center, is working on the idea of walking. How does our feet encounter the earth? So these are all various ways in which you do the geophenomenology. It's a new subject. Applied philosophy, as they call it. Environmental philosophy.
Brilliant. Anyone else?
Do you all like the session?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really
I didn't keep it too heavy because I could have done a good long philosophy lecture, but then I thought I'll workshop it out a little. So as you're working in your sessions and you're working in your thing, start reflecting on what I said about trucks, meaning bearers, concept, content. So and look and see if there are alignments, disalignments between them. Look and see whether you're focusing on context. Sometimes when you're writing a paper in literature, you can't focus too much on concepts.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes if you start focusing on context, sometimes you won't enjoy the literature. So you realize that when he's talking about the world of daisies, when you want to do literary theory, you can. So the guy who's talking about buttercups and daisies is actually not walking alone in the field. His sister is holding his hand. Right? And he's going, and the guy goes and says, I live in a hut for so many days next to a lake, and writes his whole book, Walden. Is actually living on an estate outhouse of his auntie's rich farm, and breakfast comes to him every day. He's not living in the wilderness. So his whole Walden was not written in wild, but he talks about wild. So if you look at the context, sometimes the whole image of that person just breaks down, and then the concept also goes like, what kind of nature is he experiencing when he's having breakfast delivered to him in his auntie's outhouse in our estate? So when British talk about landscaping, there's a complete different idea of when. So we are adapting the British landscape, and then there's all this. So when environment, especially these things translate into reality. Infrastructure, these political and social trucks are much more heavier and much more impactful on people's lives. Philosophical things a little, okay, truth. It's been around for a long time since the Greeks. When they say it doesn't exist, then is the problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Truth, knowledge, beauty. That's all they started with in Greek. And Greek is not Western, so I feel irritated now calling everything Western philosophy. It's actually Greek philosophy. Right? So this whole idea, the truck Western and Eastern also has become too, yeah, it has to be scrapped. It's outdone. It can't carry any more load anymore. Overloaded trucks. So that's why I prefer to use direct Greek philosophy, Roman philosophy, African. Sort of modern nation names, but at least we can, the Chinese philosopher, what they call themselves, right? So Kant is a German philosopher, right?
Yeah.
Just call them by their country. It's easy. Yeah, our civilization. And the Mideast, so-called Mideast, who are not Mideast, the Arabic philosophers, they are very popular now. We're studying them, Avicenna and others. So, the Egyptian philosophers, African philosophers, Kenyan philosophers.
We can go.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Meera, it's been a pleasure to have you and to hear your perspective on the reading, writing, thinking, philosophy in general. I think it's good to enrich ourselves with different approaches. These are meaningful approaches. There are so many. But yeah, I mean, there is no but. It's very nice that you took that time to come and share your experience so far also in publishing. And I hope we'll have further opportunities to have you exchange a bit of your views with us and maybe perhaps cooperate or debate on some topics with the students and faculty together here. We'll see what we can organize in the future. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time. And we'll see you again in the near future, I hope. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice evening. Go drink coffee.
Let's see.